webinar is being recorded. The webinar is being recorded, so afterwards we will follow up with this presentation as well as a link. So if you feel like you missed anything or you'd like to rewatch it, we will be following up with that information. But thank you very much for joining, for hopping on this quick webinar. We are the Southern U.S. Trade Association. We're headquartered in New Orleans, and we're very excited to meet and speak with you today. Just a little bit about us and who we are, what we do. So we are funded by the USDA, and we assist companies in our region, so spanning from Texas up to Maryland and down to Puerto Rico, connect with international markets and market their products internationally. So that's our primary goal here at SUSTA, is to help Southern U.S. ag and food branded companies market their products internationally. Part of our ecosystem as well are the departments of agriculture from each one of our states, and then included in that ecosystem as well, some other support. We work with the Foreign Agricultural Service and their offices all over the world. And we also have in-country consultants and the areas listed below. So they all help support us. They're part of our network just to make sure that we're up to date and helping you as well. So in terms of SUSTA, we have programs that are designed to help you connect with markets and also promote your products, but there are eligibility requirements. As you can see, the main company eligibility requirements are that you have to be headquartered in our region. You have to be considered a small business by SBA standards, have to show that you have adequate resources, sufficient annual sales to kind of be taking that next step to export. In terms of the types of companies we work with, you can kind of see the list. We work with anyone from manufacturers to export management companies, farmer co-ops, so a variety of companies. And then kind of going off of that a little bit more, product eligibility types that we work with. Product eligibility and types that we work with are, so the product has to have a brand name associated with it. And the product also has to contain at least 50% US ag and have some kind of origin statement on it. So if it's made in the US or American grown, or if whatever state you're from, let's say go Texan if you're from Texas. So that has to be on there as well. And as you can see, the types of products that we work with is really a wide range. So anything from snack foods to supplements, pet foods, fresh produce, seafood, it's really a wide range. So if anyone on the call or on this webinar today is thinking, well, I'm not sure, I'll create a My SUSTA account, and then that's kind of part of the process. So you'll provide information about your company, where you're headquartered, just to make sure that you meet the requirements. And then you also will provide information about your product type. So then from there, we can work with you. We can see what you have and how we can best assist you. So our two core programs are our global events area and then our cost share program. I'm going to speak about our global events program area, and then I will pass it off afterward to my colleague, Missy Lindsay, and she'll go in depth about our cost share program. Our global events program area is really designed to help companies get in front of buyers and connect with buyers. So we have different event types that are designed for you to accomplish that goal. Our first event type are our inbound trade missions. So how these work is with an inbound trade mission, a specific market, I'll give an example. Let's say we have a Europe inbound trade mission to Texas. How that works is we will bring in European buyers from a specific location, and we'll bring them to that state. You'll set up a booth, a table with your marketing materials, and you will meet with each one of the buyers. The way that I always like to imagine it, or that I envision it, and maybe a little bit silly, is that it's almost like speed dating, but with companies and buyers. So you will meet with each one of them for 30 minutes, and then the buyers, then you'll meet a new buyer. It's a great way to obviously build relationships, network, and obviously make sales if it leads to that. These are very popular, and most of our inbound trade missions are around $25. In order to take advantage of any of our global events, you'll have to have an approved My SUSTA account. And as you can see as well, just from that the image on that iPad, if you go to our events page, you can see the whole list of all of the event types that I'm going to be discussing today as well. So it's a great option if you're getting into a market, you're wanting to, I guess, also maybe conduct some market research, but above all, it's a great way to start making connections, start building relationships, and begin exporting. Our other event type that we have are our outbound trade missions. These are the same concept as the inbounds, but it's reverse. So you are traveling to the market. So if there was a China outbound trade mission, you would be traveling to China. Same idea where you meet with buyers, you have a table, but also included the FAS will have some sort of market overview presentation. And then as well, we organize grocery tours, retail outlet tours. So it's a great way for you to literally and figuratively get your feet in the market. You're able to see firsthand how your products will be sold, marketed, presented, maybe competition. So it's one thing to see that or research it, but it's another thing to be there in person and be there in the market itself. Our outbound trade missions vary in cost, but something that Missy will discuss later is how our cost share program can also kind of assist you, and there are some eligible expenses that are reimbursable. And then lastly, we have pavilions at international trade shows. And how these work is SUSTA will have a pavilion at an international trade show. In that pavilion, we'll have booth spaces. So when a company registers to participate in an international trade show with SUSTA, they're registering to have a booth space under that pavilion. And really the goal that we're trying to accomplish with these is to provide an easy, smooth, and beneficial experience for companies that are registering. A lot of times it can be either intimidating or overwhelming to go out on your own and participate in these international trade shows, as well as many times these are the international trade shows, if you were to have your own booth just on your own, it's significantly more expensive. But we have activity managers that are there to assist you along the way prior to and during the international trade show itself. So they're there to really provide a turnkey option for you to make it as easy and successful for you. Some other benefits, we provide translator services if that is requested or necessary. And then Missy will discuss as well just how our cost share program can also kind of work hand in hand with these international trade shows. So if you are interested, as I mentioned before, visit our events page, check out, you can see with any of the events, you can see the cost, you can see with the product focus for that event, you can see the dates, the registration deadline. So it's just a matter of going to our website and then looking at the events yourself. And then lastly, obviously with travel being limited this past year and a half, something that we've really been excited about are our educational resources. So if you're not traveling, you can still be preparing yourself to meet buyers. You can still be preparing yourself to venture out into new markets. And so we have a variety of educational resources that are there to assist you along the way. One of them being obviously our webinars. We have webinars that focus on specific topics. So whether it's market overview of a country, or exporting logistics, or packaging and labeling for a specific country as well, there's a variety of topics. If you miss any of them, once you have a My SUSTA account, all of our past webinars are under that login. So you can visit them, watch them on your own. Another educational resource that we've introduced are our one-on-one virtual consultations. So as I mentioned before, we work with our foreign consultants. So these virtual consultations are with our foreign consultants. So you register for a time and a date to meet with them, but prior to, you provide information about your company, your products. You can ask any questions as well. They kind of do their research, their homework. They provide you with a market overview, answering any of your questions. And then on that specific time and day, when you meet, it's an hour-long consultation. So they kind of share with you their findings, as well as you can ask any follow-up or additional questions. So this is just another great way for you to prepare yourself, or even if you are already exporting, if you have questions that maybe you have never been answered, it's a great resource as well. And lastly, we have our export helpline. This is something fairly new to us, at least, probably within the past 6 months it was introduced. So it's one thing to be meeting buyers, understanding how successful your product will be in the market. Another aspect of exporting are the logistics of getting your products over there. And that's really what the export helpline does, is it assists you, prepares you for that export process. So if you have questions about duties and taxes, export documents, you can kind of see the list right there. Packaging and labeling, regulations, anything of that nature. Once you have the SUSTA account, you log in and just select the topic. It'll fill in your information about your company. You ask your question, and then our export expert will be in contact with you. And she'll not only answer your question, but kind of provide you with the tools to prepare yourself on your own as well. So it's all of these educational resources are really designed to prepare you or to continue to, I guess, expand your brand as well. So that kind of is an overview of our global events area and our educational resources. So I'm going to hand it over now to my colleague, Missy Lindsay, and I'll let her take the floor.
Hi, thank you, Alistair. Good morning, everyone. How are you doing today? Just going to briefly go over cost share. Of course, Alistair did a great job talking about our global events program area. Excuse me. And honestly, these programs really work really great together, and I'll explain how that works. But we do sometimes have companies that have products that are maybe not value added. Maybe they're horticulture products, or maybe they're herbal, organic skincare line, or maybe they might have like a foot scrub, things along those lines that can't necessarily be value added for global events. So they just come to cost share. But honestly, we have companies that utilize both programs. The key thing I would stress more so with cost share outside of global events is that with cost share, you definitely want to make sure that you have a concrete marketing plan in place. This is companies basically having their own international promotions, and then SUSTA saying, for the promotions that you have in these international markets, here are a few eligible expenses we can help reimburse with. So let me try to go to the next slide. Oh, Alistair, can you go to the next slide? It's not allowing me to. Thank you. So with the eligible reimbursable expenses we have a full list of them, but I'll kind of start where Alistair left off regarding how we can utilize the programs together. So Alistair did mention that through our global events program area, excuse me, we do have exhibitions at international trade shows. So if you were to apply for cost share, we could reimburse you 50% for that already reduced cost, as well as your flight, hotel, and per diem, if you are exhibiting at that international trade show. Other additional items that you may need for the international trade show may include marketing materials, point of sale items. You may need to have ditty items that are giveaways. You might need to rent equipment. It could be anything from like an ice chest, a cooler, a hot plate. Those types of things are all reimbursable as well through the 50% cost share program, as well as flight. I don't know if I mentioned flight, hotel, and per diem for up to 2 people in your company to travel to exhibit at these shows. Furthermore, if there are trade shows, because we can't get all of them in a calendar year, if there's a trade show that's international that maybe we aren't having a presence at, but you wanted to exhibit at on your own, we could still reimburse 50% for that cost as well, and including all of the other items that I mentioned. We also have exhibitions at domestic trade shows. I can't stress enough how the premise of SUSTA is really to help you get a footing in the international market. So whether you're doing something domestically or internationally, there's going to be an international component to it. So there are about maybe 30 trade shows in the United States that the USDA deemed eligible for international expenses through cost share to receive that 50% reimbursement. I can, of course, go through a full list after this call if anybody would like to discuss in depth, or we can send it to you via email. But some of the most popular shows are your Natural Products Expo East and West trade shows, your Winter and Summer Fancy Food, the National Restaurant Association trade show, And all of these are very coveted shows in the United States. Please keep in mind, if you are exhibiting at a trade show in the US for cost share, we can't reimburse for travel or hotel, that's or per diem, that's only with international, but for domestic, there are a full list of things that we can reimburse 50% for. I know Alistair also kind of touched on outbound trade missions with SUSTA. So if you plan on participating in an outbound trade mission through our global events program area, whatever we don't cover in that fee, you can come in for 50% reimbursement. So if you allow SUSTA to pay for your airfare through your registration fee, you can still come in through cost share and not only get 50% for your registration, but also for your hotel and per diem. So just think about that when you're working or thinking about working with us for the global event sector. Another great thing that we can help with is if you have any freight samples that you need to ship to potential buyers. You know, if you want to convert your current website to a foreign URL to make it more user-friendly, a lot of consumers are actually purchasing directly from buyers right now. So this would be a great way for you to showcase your website and have it be a little bit more user-friendly by translating it to Spanish or to French to have these international buyers feel comfortable purchasing your product. Another great thing that we can reimburse 50% for is very costly label changes. Sometimes I tell companies, you know, it takes money to make money. And a lot of times US suppliers don't realize if you have to have, you know, labels regulated and converted to a foreign language to get into a certain market, that's a cost that you will have to cover. So through the cost share program, we'll say we can reimburse you 50% for some of those costs. Alistair, oh, and that's going to include the platelets, the labels, and the translation costs for that. And again, we can talk about it a little bit more in depth after this webinar if anyone would like to schedule a consultation. Alistair, may you go to the next slide, please? Thank you. So I didn't mention it on the other slide, but this is also really important as well. It's advertisements. So, you know, now during COVID, I'm finding that a lot of companies, and honestly, pre-COVID, companies were utilizing the advertisement to get 50% reimbursable items because, you know, you have to showcase your product if you're being sold in an international market. You know, maybe you got picked up from a buyer, you know, in Mexico or in Canada or in Europe, and you want to start advertising. Traditional forms of advertisement are always welcome for 50% reimbursement in an international market. And that can include billboard ads, radio spots, television ads. But now we're finding that, you know, hiring these content creators or influencers or brand ambassadors have become very trendy and very costly. So we can reimburse 50% for that as well. We've also had companies have US suppliers maybe have their product be showcased on Amazon, and they're having sales in these international markets via Amazon. So now they're starting to want to promote on Amazon that their products are being sold. So we've had companies, I believe in 2020, come in to get 50% reimbursement to advertise on Amazon in Mexico. We had a few companies that had sales in Israel via Amazon. So they're starting to promote that way as well. Another cool tool is the Google search engine. I always say if I am in the middle of nowhere and I have internet service and I search soup, Campbell's is going to come up as #1. The same theory would apply to you if you had a barbecue sauce, or maybe, you know, you had plants that you were trying to sell in an international market and you wanted your company to filtrate as one of the top 5. That's a cost that you pay to Google, but because it is an international expense, that's something that SUSTA could reimburse you 50% for. There's a lot more ways that we can help. You know, the one thing I would stress more than anything is to have a marketing plan in place before you come forth with the cost share program. It doesn't mean that you necessarily have to hire a marketing firm. If you did, there's a way that we can reimburse 50% for their fee if they wanted to help you market your product internationally. But when we say a marketing plan to start your application, we mean having a concrete idea of, okay, not a concrete idea, a concrete plan of where you plan on, you know, promoting your product. So if you come with SUSTA to do an international trade show, that would be a part of your marketing plan. If you wanted to come to a domestic show, or maybe you wanted to hire an influencer or a brand ambassador, you would want to know that you're doing that for sure before you move forward with cost share. Next slide, please. Thank you. So we keep talking about plans, and now let's talk about money. The number one thing I will also stress to companies is you want to make sure that you apply before you conduct an activity to come in for reimbursement. We cannot reimburse you retroactively. So let's say you had labels that needed to be changed as a requirement to get your product sold in a certain market. You heard about this through SUSTA and you went and did it. We wouldn't be able to reimburse you that way. Alistair mentioned a few guidelines and regs that we have to follow. So it's important that we know that the company needs that before moving forward, which is why we need you to fill out the application prior to conducting any of the eligible activities in order to get reimbursed. We are able to reimburse companies up to $300,000 a year in reimbursement. And there is a 6% admin fee on the amount that you're asking for in reimbursement. So to give like a quick analysis, if you were to do, the Summer Fancy Food Show in the United States, that show costs you $5,000, with the eligible expenses that are available, that means you're coming to SUSTA to request $2,500 in reimbursement. You would pay a 6% on that $2,500, which would be $150. Conduct the activity. Alistair, next slide, please. Conduct the activity, and then, thank you. Conduct the activity, fill out a claims form, and then we would reimburse you. These steps are crucial in order to get reimbursed, just because, again, we do have to follow those guidelines, and we need to make sure that the certain requirements are met on both ends. But again, our main focus is to get you out there in these international markets. These programs were created for you by the USDA to help you get your products in front of new potential buyers. And our job is just to facilitate the programs and to make sure that you're getting the best on your return from working with us. I say that these programs are amazing. They're really great to kind of catapult you into new areas that you never thought that you could potentially make sales in. If you guys ever have any questions, Alistair, next slide, please. You can always reach out to our marketing team. We have Danielle Coco, who's our marketing director. I'm the senior marketing coordinator that focuses primarily on the cost share program. And then we have Alistair Perez, who focuses on the global events program area. I do understand that this was a lot of information in a short amount of time. We just wanted to kind of get you excited about what we have to offer, but we can always set up a call with any one of us to go over everything more in depth. But I think in the meantime, we're going to throw it back over to Alistair to go over some Q&A.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Missy. Yes, just to kind of go off of that, if you have any questions, always feel free to reach out to us. Or if you decide, hey, I'd like to take advantage of any of these resources that are available, really the next step is to create a My SUSTA account. And we'll kind of provide some instructions on how to do that in our follow-up email as well. But I did see some questions come through in the Q&A. Good question. Small by SBA standards. What are the standards? So it really depends on your company, what y'all have, but it's determined by sales and the amount of employees. So a lot of times we may think, oh, small is maybe 50 employees, 100 employees, but really small isn't small as we may imagine. A lot of times it can be up to 1,200 employees or 1,000 employees, depending on what your products are and what industry you work in. So that's how it's determined. If you go to the SBA website, they have a table, and we can provide more information on how to access that as well. Or if you want, when you create your My SUSTA account, we can let you know if you meet those size standards as well. Saw somebody else ask, oh, hold on. Let's see. Missy, this may be a question for you. Let's see, how much total funding max provided at 50% has been historically available to an eligible participant company?
Yeah, and I briefly mentioned that. So it's up to $300,000 is the max that companies can receive for reimbursement. Right now, we do have additional funding through our agricultural trade promotion program. So there's a little bit more of additional funding that until it runs out, we have access to. But right now, typically the max is going to be $300,000 that a company can receive. And honestly, we do have companies that come in and get large reimbursements. We have companies that do billboards in the Middle East or in Europe and or do ads and campaigns. And I've seen companies get $180,000 reimbursed when they come in with SUSTA. So this is tangible dollars. It's really a matter of you having a marketing plan and, utilizing the funding to the best of its ability. So, and that's what we're here for. Honestly, when you start the application process, if you're a new company, we'll go through a consultation in depth. I feel like I've had a few consultations with one or two people on the phone. So hi, good to see you in person. But we will have consultations to go over everything in depth. And then when you're filling out the cost share application, Deneen Wilkes, the cost share director, can walk you through that to make sure you're putting the proper information in your application. And then we have Kathy Trimmer, who is the senior claims coordinator, when you're filling out your claims to try to get that reimbursement. If you have any questions to see, if this is an eligible claim, am I doing it the right way? We have people in our office that walk you through each step of the way. We're not just handing you off and saying good luck. So we definitely are here to assist throughout the process.
Yes, correct. Thank you, Missy. Saw another question come through. This, I believe this may be a cost share question. How long does it take to process requests for approval?
Another great question. So honestly, it's on a first come, first served basis. I would stress to a company, if you know that you have something coming up, let's say we're in August, if like there's the private label trade show taking place in Chicago in November, I wouldn't wait until October to start the application process. I would start the application process in September. Give yourself a few months. As far as the reimbursement, the faster you get your claims into us, the faster we can reimburse you. Also good to know, on August 1st, we actually open up the program year for the upcoming year. So right now, you can actually apply for funding for 2022 as early as now. Now, you won't get the reimbursement until you actually do the activity. But the importance behind that is sometimes there may be events that happen at the beginning of the year. A great example of that is the Winter Fancy Food Show that takes place in January in San Francisco. And a lot of times if a company will wait to the last minute, to fill out their application, you don't know how many are in line in the queue before you. And if you exhibit at the show, we may not be able to reimburse you if you didn't apply first. So that's why we really try to tell companies to plan in advance. We plan in advance at SUSTA. So I know that was like a long-winded way to say, it is first come, first served basis, but there are ways to kind of offset that as well with applying early.
And Missy brought up a good point that I haven't mentioned in terms of the 2020 calendar year for SUSTA being opening up. The same applies for global events. So if you are wanting to participate in some of those trade shows that are early on in 2022, they are open for registration. It's just a matter of having that approved My SUSTA account and then registering. And we've already seen many companies already starting to register for events, and they're available on first come, first served basis as well. Let's see, any other questions? I saw at the beginning, will you be sending a copy of the deck post call? I'm assuming that you're asking regarding the presentation. Yes, we will include this presentation in our follow-up emails. We will send this to everyone that registered for the webinar. I'm
One thing that I didn't mention, sorry. One thing that I didn't mention that kind of is a new trend that we're doing. We have a lot of virtual events through global events, but also with cost share. If there is any trade show on that US approved trade show list that we can send you all when we follow up, if any of those shows go virtual, we can reimburse 50% for that as well. Some of the shows actually did go virtual this year. I think the National Restaurant Association show might have done it, or the Natural Products Expo West, I think, is the one that did it. And a lot of times these virtual shows can be a little bit more costly than you think. I always thought that they would be like around $200 to $300, and that's not the case. I believe that the virtual exhibition for Expo West was possibly around $1,900. So we could have reimbursed the company 50% for that. If there are any trade shows that are in the international market that decide to have a virtual component and you feel more comfortable doing that, we can reimburse 50% for that as well. I do believe last year in 2020, CL China did that option for companies to either be in person or to exhibit virtually. And I do believe that the Natural Products Expo East show that's coming up in September, that's taking place in Philadelphia, has that option as well. So just keep that in mind. You know, if you feel a little bit apprehensive about, you know, exhibiting in person, we can still help you get reimbursed virtually.
And Missy brought up another great point in terms of virtual. I know I didn't mention this before, but we also have a lot of virtual trade missions as well. So if you do go to our events page and you see virtual trade missions, how those work are basically the same as our inbound trade missions. So you ship your products to our consultant and they distribute your products to the buyers that are participating. And then you have one-on-one Zoom meetings with each of the buyers. So that's how our virtual trade missions have been organized. We're obviously hoping to get back out in person, meeting people one-on-one, but that is something that we've had, and there's been plenty of success through those virtual trade missions as well. I'm not seeing any other questions, so wrap things up. As Missy mentioned, if you have questions, feel free to reach out to Missy or myself. We're more than happy to answer your questions, hop on a call, schedule a Zoom or Teams call, whatever it may be. We're here really to help and support you. And we'll provide instructions if you listened to this today and you thought, I'd like to start taking advantage of these programs, the instructions to getting started and creating your SUSTA account. But if that's it, then thank you very much for participating today, for joining us and seeing how we can best help you expand your brand and really go from local to global. So take care and have a great rest of your day.
Enjoy your day. Thanks, Alistair. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.